For 18 years, I had relied on sleeping pills. It started innocently enough: stress at work, insomnia that would keep me awake until the early hours. At first, it was occasional, something I used to fall asleep after a rough day. But over time, it became a habit, a nightly ritual. I didn't think much of it. It was my way to escape the constant noise in my mind, the worries about work, the small anxieties about life, marriage, and family. My husband, Adam, was always around, or so I thought. He would kiss me goodnight, make sure the lights were off, and sometimes sit with me until I drifted into sleep. He seemed attentive, loving, and caring, or at least that's what I believed. For years, I trusted him completely. I had no reason not to, until last week. It all began with small things. I would wake up in the middle of the night and notice that my pills were slightly disturbed, even though I had placed them in the same spot. I dismissed it as my forgetfulness, the foggy haze of insomnia. Then came the whispers. At first, I thought I was imagining it, hearing muffled voices from the hallway, the living room, noises too soft for me to identify. I would groggily shake my head, blaming it on the sleep medication or fatigue. But my curiosity started to grow. One night, I decided to record audio while I was asleep. I set my phone to capture sounds through the room and left it on the nightstand. I told myself it was harmless. Maybe I would just discover that I was imagining things, that I was paranoid after so many years of disrupted sleep. When I woke the next morning, I was exhausted, but eager to hear the recording. I pressed play. At first, it was the usual sounds of the night, the hum of the refrigerator, the faint creaks of the house settling. But then I heard it, a shadow and sound that made my stomach drop. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate, crossing the bedroom floor. And then my husband's voice, but different. Whispering. Not my name, not words of affection. Words I couldn't understand at first. I froze. I rewound the recording. And there it was again. Adam, speaking softly, moving around the bedroom, opening drawers, handling my things. I tried to convince myself it was innocent. Maybe he was sleepwalking? Maybe it was some random noise? But then came the sound that made my heart stop. The rustle of a small bottle, the click of the lid being unscrewed, and the faint clinking of my sleeping pills being poured out. I realized with growing horror that it wasn't random.
He was taking them.
My mind raced.
Why?
For what purpose? I had trusted him for 18 years, shared everything with him, and here he was, secretly taking control of my life while I slept. I felt sick, betrayed, frightened. I wanted answers. I needed proof. I had lived in a fog for nearly 2 decades, relying on the pills to sleep, unaware that every night, something or someone was undermining me, manipulating my mind and body without my consent. The next night, I stayed awake, pretending to take my usual pill. I waited, heart hammering, every creak of the house setting me on edge. Then I saw him, Adam, moving quietly, reaching for my bottle. And that's when I realized the truth. For 18 years, while I thought I was resting peacefully, he had been doing something at night that I never could have imagined. And when I discovered what it was, my world changed forever. I couldn't believe what I had just witnessed on the recording. My mind refused to accept it at first, trying to rationalize it, searching for an explanation. But deep down, I knew there was no harmless reason for him to be taking my sleeping pills at night without my knowledge. I started paying closer attention. Every night, I would leave the bottle as usual, only to find it slightly disturbed, sometimes a few pills missing. My husband would never admit to it if confronted. Then one night, I decided to stay awake longer than usual. I told myself I had to see it for myself. I pretended to fall asleep, my body relaxed, but my mind alert. The house was quiet, but I could hear the faint creaking of the floors above. And then I saw him, Adam, moving silently toward the bedroom, his movements deliberate, calculated. He didn't knock. He didn't speak. He just reached for the bottle and poured out the pills. I felt a cold shiver run down my spine. I wanted to scream, to confront him immediately, but I had to be careful. I needed to understand why he was doing this. My heart raced, every instinct screaming at me that something was terribly wrong. The next morning, I confronted him casually, trying not to reveal what I had seen. "Adam," I said lightly, "have you been taking my sleeping pills?" He laughed nervously. "What are you talking about? Why would I do that?" His reaction only confirmed my suspicion. I could see the tension in his face, the way his eyes darted briefly before meeting mine. I knew he was lying. I decided to investigate further. I checked the bottles each night, keeping meticulous notes on how many pills were missing when they were taken and any patterns in his behavior. It became clear he wasn't just taking them for curiosity or mischief. He was using them to control me, to manipulate my sleep, my mood, and my perception. I remembered the small, subtle changes I had noticed over the years, my sudden forgetfulness, the headaches, the moments of extreme fatigue even after a full night's rest. At first, I blamed myself, thinking it was age, stress, or something minor. Now I realized it had been happening for years, slowly, insidiously. I confronted him again, this time more forcefully. "Adam, I know what you're doing. I know you've been taking my pills." He turned pale. You don't understand. I was helping you. Helping me? By sabotaging me? By taking control of my body while I slept." My voice shook with rage. "For 18 years? He tried to justify himself, but I was done listening. I couldn't believe the man I had married, the father of my children, had been violating my trust so completely, so systematically. I knew I had to act. I started recording everything, documenting his behavior, the pills, his lies. I contacted my doctor to discuss what had been happening to my health, making sure there was professional proof that I had been affected by the missing medication. I also began secretly installing cameras and motion detectors, careful not to alert him, to gather evidence of his nightly intrusions. The more I uncovered, the more horrified I became. Adam had been using my dependence on sleeping pills as a way to manipulate me, to keep me weak, to control me. All those nights I thought I was resting peacefully, he was plotting, observing, and taking advantage of my vulnerability. It was more than betrayal. It was a violation, a crime that had continued unchecked for nearly 2 decades. My body, my mind, my trust, my very life had been manipulated under the guise of love and care. But now I had evidence, and with evidence came power. For the first time in 18 years, I realized that I could fight back. I could reclaim control over my life, my health, and my future. The final revelation came when I set up a camera in the bedroom, discreetly hidden. What I captured next left me utterly speechless. Adam wasn't just taking the pills. He was doing something that I never, in a million years, could have imagined. It wasn't just control. It was something far worse. And in that moment, I understood. The man I had married, the person I had trusted completely, had been living a double life, one that endangered me, manipulated me, and stole my years while I slept.